Eric Hoffer's The True Believer, Thoughts on the Nature of Mass Movements, 1951, is a profound exploration of the psychology behind mass movements, focusing on the motivations, characteristics, and behaviors of individuals who become ardent followers. Hoffer, a self-educated longshoreman and philosopher, wrote this book in the aftermath of World War II, drawing on historical examples to understand how mass movements, whether religious, revolutionary, or nationalist, arise and sustain themselves. The psychology of the true believer. One of Hoffer's central theses is that mass movements attract individuals who are discontented with their own lives. He argues that the true believer is often someone who feels deeply insecure, powerless, and dissatisfied. Such individuals look for external causes to blame for their personal failures and seek a movement that offers them a sense of identity and purpose. By merging with a greater cause, they can escape from the burdens of individuality and responsibility. According to Hoffer, these individuals are willing to make significant sacrifices for the movement, sometimes to the point of self-destruction. He suggests that they are not necessarily poor or oppressed, but rather feel that their lives lack meaning. This psychological need for purpose is what fuels their devotion to a cause, even at the expense of rational thought and personal well-being. The role of frustration and discontent. Hoffer emphasizes that mass movements thrive in societies experiencing widespread frustration. When large groups of people feel alienated or powerless, they become fertile ground for movements that promise change and redemption. He points out that these movements often start among those who have lost their previous status or security, rather than among the most impoverished members of society. For example, he discusses how the Nazi movement in Germany gained traction among the middle class who felt disillusioned after World War I and the economic collapse that followed. Similarly, he examines how the Bolshevik Revolution attracted intellectuals and workers who felt their social position was threatened. These individuals turned to ideological movements that offered them hope and a new vision of society. The importance of a common enemy. One of Hoffer's most striking observations is that mass movements rely on the creation of a common enemy. Whether religious or political, these movements solidify their unity by identifying an external force, be it a class, a race, or a political system, that they can blame for their problems. This enemy serves as a scapegoat and a rallying point, making the movement's cause appear more urgent and justified. Hoffer argues that without an enemy, mass movements struggle to maintain their momentum. He notes that even after achieving their primary goals, movements often manufacture new enemies to sustain their relevance. This pattern can be observed in revolutionary regimes, which frequently purge dissenters and fabricate internal or external threats to maintain control. Leadership and doctrine. Hoffer categorizes the leaders of mass movements into three types: men of words, fanatics, and practical men of action. Men of words are intellectuals and thinkers who criticize the existing order, but often lack the ability to lead a movement themselves. They plant the seeds of discontent through their writings and speeches. Fanatics are the fiery leaders who take the intellectuals' ideas and transform them into a radical cause. They are uncompromising, willing to use violence, and inspire the masses through their extreme dedication. Practical men of action come later, consolidating power and transforming the movement into a structured system, often suppressing the fanatics once their purpose has been served. Hoffer also discusses the nature of doctrine in mass movements, explaining that successful movements often have a rigid ideology that demands complete faith from their followers. These doctrines simplify complex social issues into clear, absolute principles, making it easier for the true believer to accept them without question. The role of faith and self-sacrifice. Another key theme in the true believer is the idea that mass movements require self-sacrifice. Hoffer argues that the true believer gains meaning by surrendering their individuality to the collective cause, whether in the form of martyrdom, strict adherence to dogma, or acts of radical devotion. Self-sacrifice reinforces the movement's legitimacy. Faith plays a crucial role in this process. Hoffer notes that true believers do not necessarily need logical consistency in their ideology. Instead, they embrace beliefs with religious fervor, disregarding contradictions or inconvenient facts. This absolute faith allows mass movements to persist even when their promises fail to materialize. The transition from revolutionary to established power. Hoffer examines what happens when a mass movement achieves its goals and transitions into a stable regime. He observes that once in power, movements often lose their revolutionary zeal. The fanatics who led the uprising are usually replaced by bureaucrats and pragmatists who seek to maintain order rather than pursue radical change. This transition can be seen in various historical examples, such as the aftermath of the French Revolution, where the radical Jacobins were eventually replaced by more moderate rulers. Similarly, after the Bolshevik Revolution, Lenin and later Stalin consolidated power by eliminating extreme revolutionaries who might have destabilized the new government. Implications for modern society. Hoffer's insights remain highly relevant today. His analysis can be applied to contemporary political movements, religious extremism, and even social media-driven activism. Many of the psychological mechanisms he describes, frustration, the need for belonging, the identification of enemies, continue to shape mass movements in the modern era. For example, extremist groups in the 21st century, whether political or religious, often exhibit the same characteristics he described. They attract disillusioned individuals seeking meaning, create a clear enemy, and demand unwavering faith from their followers. Additionally, the rise of digital technology has made it easier than ever for such movements to recruit members and spread their ideology. Conclusion. Eric Hoffer's The True Believer is a timeless exploration of the forces that drive mass movements. By analyzing the psychology of the true believer, the conditions that foster mass movements, and the role of leadership, Hoffer provides a framework for understanding how radical ideologies take hold. His insights into the dynamics of faith, self-sacrifice, and fanaticism continue to be relevant in today's world, offering valuable lessons for anyone seeking to understand the power of collective belief. Ultimately, Hoffer's work serves as both a warning and a guide. It reminds us that mass movements can be both a force for progress and a tool for oppression. By understanding the motivations behind them, we can better navigate the social and political landscapes of our time.